Hello and good morning, everyone. Joe Justice here. It is October 26th. It's Wednesday, and that's Hump Day. And I hope you guys are really excited for an awesome day today. We are going to have so much fun. I've got an excellent topic for you today. I want to remind you to please like, subscribe, share. If you see this video and you think it can help out some people, please be sure to share it, comment, help out the algorithm to help me spread the word a little bit, and I would really appreciate it. Today, I was wanting to talk to everybody about one of my favorite topics, believe it or not, and that is actually Carl Jung. But to talk about that, to get into that, before we get into that, let me dive into the topic itself, which is to do something dangerous. So that's what I want you guys to do today. Definitely by the end of the week, do something dangerous. Now, of course, and it should go without saying, I don't mean try to go jump off a bridge. Yes, that's dangerous. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something that you find as spiritually dangerous, as mentally dangerous, as reputationally dangerous. So to break down exactly what I mean, something to understand what I'm talking about here, I thought I would introduce you to the thinking of he's a great Swiss psychiatrist and psychoanalyst. He was around the time of Freud. I'm pretty sure he was a student of Freud. I know he was a colleague of Freud, and his name was Carl Jung. He was Swiss, and he created this kind of very deep psychoanalytical system built around story and narrative. And to give you an idea, he kind of distilled all of the narratives and the myths and the stories that we tell each other, going, ancient mythology, stories from the Bible, stories from all over the world, and he would distill those down into single concepts, like what do these mean? And he created this concept of archetypes, because you can kind of pull out the essence of stories to see what they all have in common. Now that, if you're not familiar with Jung, that kind of story, that might sound familiar to you if you're familiar with a writer named Joseph Campbell, who wrote Hero with a Thousand Faces. And he was very popular with Star Wars fans and stuff because George Lucas took a lot of inspiration off that book. Well, Joseph Campbell got all of his ideas off of Carl Jung. Carl Jung's ideas were much more deep, complicated, and what Joseph Campbell did was kind of make them more accessible for people to understand and distill down even further to make them more popular. So, with that background in place, one of the things that Carl Jung said, one of his most famous quotes, is that which is needed the most will be found where we least want to look. And to get an idea of why that is, just think about the dragon from mythology. Always guards treasure. It either guards a woman or literal treasure. It guards something that the protagonist wants. Now think about that. That doesn't make any sense from a rational standpoint. Why would an animal guard treasure? Lions don't guard treasure. Bears don't guard treasure. Snakes don't guard treasure. No predator, no animal, no enemy of humans guards treasure. So why does a mythological creature, a mythological predator, why does he guard treasure? And it's because the dragon is a construct. It's created psychologically by human beings as a way, as a narrative form to explain how to act in the world. And the idea behind it is you are afraid of the dragon, you are afraid of this thing, but if you conquer it, you will get treasure. And that's what I'm talking about today with doing something dangerous. By something dangerous, I'm talking about that psychological danger, that fear that you have. Think back to when you were in high school. Think back to when you were a kid. Let's say you wanted to ask the girl out for a date. Now, as an adult looking back on it, what was the big deal? You would have asked her out and she would have said yes, or she would have said no. And that would have been it. And then you'd have moved on to the next girl, or you would have gone out on the date with the one girl. But At that time, that felt dangerous. That was terrifying. You would think about the girl and your hands would get clammy and you would go up to her and you would stutter and you would stammer and you would just be afraid to do it. But what were you afraid of? It was all in your head. There was nothing to be afraid of. You run into the exact same thing today when it comes to things like asking your boss for a raise. What are you afraid of? What's he going to do? Are you going to ask him for a raise and he's going to punch you in the mouth? What do you think's going to happen? He's either going to say yes or no. Well, what if he fires me? Well, let's think about that for just a moment. Let's touch on that fear for just a minute. Why would he fire you if you ask for a raise? There's only one reason, and that's that you're doing a poor job. And now we're starting to get down to the dragon. Now we're starting to see the dragon. Now the reason you're afraid, what you're digging into, what are you really afraid of, is that you're not doing a good job. Let that sink in for a second. You're afraid to talk to your boss because you're afraid he knows that you're not doing a good job and he's going to fire you for asking for a raise. If you're doing a good job, if your position is strong, and you're going to him and you're saying, hey, you're not going to be able to make it without me, and you ask for a raise, he's either going to say, I would love to give you a raise, but I can't afford it right now. But we will. We'll talk about this again in 6 months. Or he's going to give you a raise. If you're doing a bad job, then there's that chance he's going to fire you. But that means that you know that you're doing a bad job. And that's what you're actually afraid of. That's the dragon. You don't want to confront that dragon because that dragon's going to burn you to a crisp. You understand that? Getting a little scary here, I understand. So you got to get out of your comfort zone. You've got to look into what it is what are you really afraid of? And it comes that way to all kinds of things. Is there somebody that you need to confront? Is it a family member? Is there something that you think would be scary? Maybe you want to be, hey, I'm not judging anything, okay? Maybe you want to be a TikTok influencer. Maybe you see people on TikTok and you think, man, I want to do that, but you're afraid. Don't be afraid. If you've got some cool ideas for TikTok videos, put them out there. What's going to happen? What's the worst thing that's going to happen? Somebody's going to see them and say that they're silly? TikTok is so big that there's plenty of people that wouldn't. Now, by the way, I wouldn't do TikTok because I'm not a big fan of that social network. But whatever it is, YouTube, if you want to be a writer, you've written a book, but you're afraid to get it out there. You're afraid to show it to people because they might critique it. Oh no, they might tear it to shreds. Oh no. Well, what are you afraid of? You're afraid you're a bad writer? Or are you afraid that they're going to criticize it? Because those are two different things. If you're a good writer and you believe in yourself, it doesn't matter if they're going to criticize it or not. So get out of that comfort zone. Find something that's a little dangerous. Find something that makes you uncomfortable, and then get comfortable in that new area where you're uncomfortable. And there's a really interesting phenomenon that happens when you get out of that. And it's really well known you can talk to therapists about this, especially behavioral therapists, because there's actually a small problem that develops quite a bit with, it's particularly with women that have problems, because what they tend to do is if they're very agreeable and they're very, go along, get along, they'll end up in bad relationships because they don't want to reject the relationship. They don't want to, fight. They don't like conflict. So what ends up happening is they become scared and withdrawn, and usually that'll manifest itself in different ways. So maybe they'll have arachnophobia, or maybe they'll be afraid of elevators, or maybe they'll have agoraphobia, or maybe they'll have claustrophobia. So then what'll happen is they'll go to their therapist. Their therapist will start to make progress with their fear. So now they're not, and what happens, just so you know, when you battle your fear, the fear doesn't subside. The fear doesn't go away. You become braver. You become more powerful. That's the difference. Fear never leaves you. The fear doesn't shrink. You become bigger. So it's no longer a threat. But that generalizes. So the real threat that happens with people that are in bad relationships, for example, and say they're agoraphobics. They work with a therapist and they begin going out in the neighborhood and stuff. What'll very often happen is it'll trigger conflicts at home, because now they're not putting up with it anymore. They generalize that bravery. So when they generalize that bravery, all of a sudden the little things that their spouse does that is rude, inappropriate, that they shouldn't do, all of a sudden they're standing up for themselves and they're saying, no, don't do that to me anymore. And now that generates conflict, because all of a sudden their spouse had this nice, submissive, good girl that's not going to do anything wrong. Now he can't treat her like garbage anymore all of a sudden. So think about that. It generalizes. And there's a little bit of a cost in there. And that's why it's a dragon. If there's no cost, I mean, the dragon's going to burn you. And that's why it's a dragon. But the treasure's there. The treasure's there if you're willing to go after it and willing to get it. And I know that you are. I know that you can do it. I know that you have the ability, because I believe in you. And I want you to believe in yourself as much as I believe in you. Thanks for watching today, guys. I'm going to head on off here and get ready for work. Please do like, subscribe, share this with anybody that might find it interesting. I appreciate all of the any feedback, any comments, anything like that. Hope you have a wonderful day, a great hump day, and do something dangerous today. Thanks a lot, and bye-bye.